This is the Invincible podcast on TV Podcast Industries. We're back for Season 2, talking about Season 2, Episode 1, A Lesson for Your Next Life.
Hi, since you were all part of the resistance, we need to kill you.
Murderers!
Ah, a volunteer.
Don't touch me!
Hey, buddy. You sentenced yourself to death when you joined Club Resistance.
Justice. Justice will come for you. For all the friends we've lost to your senseless cruelty, for all the families you've torn apart, you will reap
Let's
what
do
you...
this, Mark. I missed lunch because of that riot in Bangkok.
Yeah, way ahead of you. What the hell was that? A portal or something?
Who cares? Let's finish this off. I'm starving.
Welcome back, fellow Guardians, to the Invincible podcast on TV Podcast Industries. This time we're talking about Invincible Season 2, Episode 1, A Lesson for Your Next Life. I'm one of your hosts, Derek.
And rounding out this duo, the dynamic duo, if you will, I am Chris.
We're back together, Chris, me and you.
Yay! Just us. Just the two of us. We can make it if we try.
Isn't it crazy to think it's been 2.5 years since Invincible Season 1? The finale of Season 1 was on the 30th of April 2021, so a very long time since the first season of Invincible.
Yeah, I went and made my own kid in that time.
Yeah.
I have made my own Mark. No, his name's Miles, but it's the same thing.
Yeah.
I'm just not going to go pure Omni-Man on it, but we'll see. You never know what will happen in the future.
Don't do that. Make him a real superhero, Chris. But we have done other episodes where it has been just the two of us. Over the course of that, we've covered things like The Boys Diabolical, myself and you, covering all those animated episodes as well. But it's rare that it's just me and you on board for these shows. But this is one of the special ones. Invincible, coming from Robert Kirkman, who created The Walking Dead, and of course did the original comic book series with Ryan Ottley and Corey Walker. So this is something that goes right into our wheelhouse, right? So,
yes.
Yeah.
For you, it is the Kirkman Walking Dead connection that brought you into Invincible. And for me, it was basically this is a superhero trope. Mm-hmm. Oh, wait, 2 issues in. No, this is not. And ever since then, we have gone deep into the lore. I probably finished my second reread last year, third reread last year. And again, thinking Season 2 might come sooner.
Yeah.
It did not. So yes, I am not fresh in all my comic book lore, but because I'm also deep on Wheel of Time at the moment. So once I finish Wheel of Time, just 13 books there, I'll just pop on over to the the 4 or 3 omnibus massive volumes of Invincible.
Excellent.
Sure, it shouldn't take me time at all.
And for those of you who may not remember, I'm the one who's read to the least amount of Invincible. I have read the first collected edition, or the first and second collected edition, but not a huge amount of the story that's being covered here in the seasons of Invincible. But the good news is we have 4 episodes of Invincible out this year. We have 1 episode a week for the next couple of weeks, which is great. And then we also have the Atom Eve special, which myself and Chris didn't get the chance to cover because we were covering 4 other shows in TV Podcast Industries at the time. Yes. We will get around to covering that. We'll probably cover it after we finish the 4-episode series, once we're a little bit more free on time. But we have both seen it and it was really good.
Oh, it was fantastic. It was strong. Again, you go into these animated shows thinking there'll be the old school 25 minutes kind of villain of the week, and then you get these hour long, 45-minute long episodes, and you're like, oh, this is so bloody, oh, it's so good, it's so gory, oh, that's an eyeball, how did that happen? Absolutely enjoyed it, can't wait to cover it with you again. As you said, probably closer towards the Christmas period as we get into the end of these 4.
Exactly. And in honor of the explosive first episode of Invincible, we're both recording this on Halloween night in Ireland, which means there'll be tons and tons of fireworks and explosions that you may hear in the background. we're not going to be able to record it anyway, other than you being able to hear those. Hopefully you won't hear too many of them, or we won't be interrupted too much, but we're both hearing explosions in our headphones as we record at the moment. But yes. Happy Halloween. Hope you had a good Halloween. This first episode is coming out the Friday after Halloween, so hopefully you've had a good week. And
if any of you Guardians dressed up as Invincible in lieu of the show coming out, just feel free to send it to facebook.com/groups/TV Podcast Industries and share it with everyone there, or email it to us at feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com, because it would be great to see cool cosplay. Always a good fan of good cosplay.
We already got some cosplay in. After our call out on our last episode of Loki, we have a wonderful Nick Fury cosplay came into our feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com email address as well. So I have to share that with you, Chris. Looking very cool, Clyde.
They definitely know their audience when they send you a Nick Fury one.
100%.
But we're not here to talk about Marvel. We are here to talk about Invincible.
Absolutely. Yes. This is our feed where we talk about every episode of Invincible, every episode of The Boys right here in the feed. You can make sure to stay subscribed to that. You get all the coverage of all of the shows. Subscribe over at tvpodcastindustries.com. It does have its own feed, or our main feed, TV Podcast Industries, over there. So you can keep up to date. Season 3 of Invincible is already in production as well. So the next 4 episodes of Invincible will come out next year, and then we'll be on to the 3rd season. No announcement as to when that's coming, but it is in production, which is great.
Yes, and they did say next year, early next year. What early could mean, that is just it could be any time within the first 6 months. Let's just be honest about it.
Absolutely.
That is still early. But let's dive into our discussion for this episode. But first, Derek, do you want to tell us who gave us what, where, when, and how with the episode details?
Absolutely, yes. Invincible, of course, created by Robert Kirkman, Corey Walker, and Ryan Ottley. The supervising director for these episodes is Dan Duncan. He was a storyboard artist on the Atom Eve special, which we'll be discussing later in the year. He's also the supervising director for the series as well, so he does have that main credit keeping the story together overall for the season. The director of this episode was Saul Choi. He was an artist on many, many animated shows and movies like Batman The Long Halloween, but also director on 32 of the 58 episodes of the 2017 animated Spider-Man series.
Nice.
There you go. So a Spider fan there for you, Chris.
Always. It was the 2017 one, so I was a bit older for it. Mm-hmm. So I haven't seen all of them, but I did watch a few, and I know a few people do absolutely hold it in high regard. But it is a slightly different caliber of show than what he is giving us here.
Absolutely. Very different audience, I would say, for that too. This episode was written by Simon Racioppa. This is his 3rd episode of Invincible after episode 2 and 7 of season 1. He also wrote the final episode of The Boys animated spin-off Diabolical, which we covered on this here podcast as well. So you can go back and check out our thoughts about that episode too.
Yes, absolutely love Diabolical. It was still one of my favorite animated plays on kind of what The Boys universe. Probably the only, but especially those kind of final episodes. So yeah, no, absolutely great.
Excellent. Chris, do you want to tell us what they gave us with your synopsis for Invincible Season 2, Episode 1, A Lesson for Your Next Life?
Sure. In another dimension, the Immortal has returned and battles Invincible and his father Omni-Man as they prepare Earth to become part of the Viltrum Empire. As they kill the Immortal once again, they realize he was just causing a distraction to keep them away from the human resistance. The resistance are led by the remaining members of the Guardians of the Globe, including Adam Eve, Robot, and a new member, Angstrom Levi. Omni-Man and Invincible locate the resistance, execute Robot, paralyze Adam Eve, and slaughter the other members. But Angstrom Levi escapes through a portal before they kill him. Back in our dimension, Mark and his mother Debbie are struggling to deal with the aftermath of the loss of Omni-Man. While Debbie gets a visit from Red Mist widow Olga, Mark tries to get back to work with the Guardians of the Globe, but Cecil wants him to rest more, concerned he might be too much like his father. But the new Guardians of the Globe aren't doing well under the leadership of Robot. Now in his human body of Rudy, he feels fear for the first time when the team fight a giant with the mind of an 8-year-old. Cecil replaces him as leader with the Immortal and adds more muscle to the team with a new hero called Bulletproof. Angstrom arrives in this dimension and starts gathering together alternate versions of himself from every corner of every other dimension. he employs the Maulers to build a machine that will allow him to access all the minds and memories of his doppelgangers. As other Maulers arrive from many other dimensions to complete Angstrom's plan, Cecil sends in Invincible to deal with him. But during the battle, the Dimension Traveler interrupts the process and, unknown to Invincible, kills most of the Maulers and merges his mind with all the other alternate Angstroms. With Angstrom mutilated and with memories of Invincible and Omni-Man's destruction of multiple Earths, he vows to punish Mark for all the deaths.
Well done, Chris, for getting through the entire synopsis under heavy fire.
Yes,
from
suppressing fire.
Yes. Good stuff. Lots going on here with the introduction of this brand new character, Angstrom Levi.
Yes, one of my favorite characters.
Really?
Well, one of my favorite villains. The volume they're riffing off from for this season of Invincible, with volumes, I should say. Still some of my favorite because it does start to introduce more of the what some people would call like secondary characters, or kind of not meant as a negative. They actually serve to really start, as I see it, flesh out the Invincible universe in some of the best ways.
Excellent. And the great thing is, as they do introduce these characters, we don't know what's secondary and what's not, unless you read the comic book. So he seems like quite a major character here. And on any other show, you'd probably think he's the season-long villain for it, but you have no idea what's going to happen on Invincible. He could be gone by the end of next episode.
Gone in the next 5 minutes.
He could be. But let's get into talking about our top points for the episode. If this is your first time joining us for the Invincible podcast on TV Podcast Industries, or your first time joining us at all for any of the shows that we cover, the way we talk about our shows is picking out our major points that we want to discuss, hopefully covering off all the episode, but all the things that we're interested in, all the things that stood out to us from the episode. For Invincible, we're going to be talking about our top 4 points for this episode. Let's start out with point number 1. The introduction of alternate dimensions. Something that we're very used to over on the MCU. Definitely.
Yes. Multiverse is here. And they're everywhere.
Yep.
If you're not across Marvel or DC or many other shows on TV, pretty much everything is now alternate dimensions, multiverse. But Invincible does it in a fun way. I'll always say that.
Yeah, and this was really interesting because it probably stood out to me quite significantly because I was kind of going, I know there's a time jump between season 1 and season 2, and I'm not familiar exactly with what happens. At the end of last season, we had the battle between Mark and his dad, Nolan, before Nolan left the planet. And here we have it starting out that Mark has teamed back up with Nolan. It's got Invincible and Omni-Man being attacked by the Immortal, who has returned once again. He is immortal. He does come back from death very often. And it seems like potentially this is our main story. This is the Mark that we met last season, and he's just had a change of heart. Yeah,
and that's why I love the cold open here. It kind of leads to, I'll jokingly say, a WTF moment. You're like, what is going on? What has happened in these 6 months? And it's not until you really start to see death and destruction and the very politicized Mark message kind of going out that you're like, okay, something else is wrong here. Something's a bit different. But yeah, I really enjoyed, and especially seeing the multiple parts of it, seeing the Immortal being like just chopped in half, seeing the kind of flyby destruction of multiple cities.
Yeah.
Just fantastic.
Absolutely. And I think also seeing Mark participate in the crushing of the Immortal as his father cuts off his hands and then Mark destroys his head. You know, you kind of think to begin with, is the Immortal just going after Mark for what Omni-Man did? And then as they team up for that battle, you realize they're working together. One of the little kind of dropped lines that we hear a little bit later on in the episode is that in almost every dimension, Mark has joined up with his dad as a Viltrumite and has been involved in the preparation of Earth for becoming part of the Viltrum Empire. So that's quite interesting. So the Mark that we're seeing is only one of a few that went up against his dad and didn't team up with him. So I thought that was quite an interesting little touch.
And it's even more interesting when you start to see how different the universe can be. Like, we see the remaining Guardians of the Globe. We see Rudy in his robot form, but without his new body.
Yeah.
You see Adam Eve in a very Charlize Theron, Mad Max, Fury Road kind of haircut and getup. Really, and you also get to see how that they've changed evolved their power set in these 6 months fighting Invincible and Omni-Man, because we do get then, like, you see they're led back to the Resistance by an Angstrom Levi, and they arrive when he arrives, and really are there to crush the final bits of the Resistance and the Guardians of the Globe, and make short work of them.
Absolutely. And a really brutal mark that we see here. You know, it's kind of alluded to again. You don't get a full flashback of it, but again alluded that the change in Mark only happened after his battle with his father, just like it did in the universe we've been following, or in the dimension that we've been following. So if you remember that, then that means that Eve and himself were really good friends up until that point. And here he is saying to her, I wouldn't kill you, and then snapping her neck in a certain way so that she's only paralyzed, is the way that he's seeing it. So he can just go and visit her, but she will be unable to use her powers. She will be unable to move. You know, that's a really big leap for this character to have taken within the 6 months, you know? He seems pleased with how he's battling and killing people. He seems okay with the fact that his father's saying, kill all the humans, because I just want to get back for a sandwich because I'm really hungry, you know? He seems absolutely fine with all of that.
And the paralyzing Madam Eve led to one of the funniest, again, dark humor, gallows humor, funniest lines, where you hear Omni-Man go, oh, that's what you were practicing on all those people last week in the square. Now I understand. And he goes, yeah, it was really hard to do.
Yeah.
But I got it. And you're like, oh my God.
Absolutely.
He went through hundreds of people just snapping their necks, trying to get it until he just paralyzed them.
Yeah.
You're like, oof.
Really, really difficult stuff. What else do we want to talk about in the initial introduction of these alternate dimensions?
Really, for me, it's just the introduction of Angstrom Levi. You get this character who is very much standing up against he's part of the Resistance. He's seen the issue and destruction with, that is brought on by Omni-Man and Invincible. And then just as he is about to die, he is ripped from his own universe via a portal to ? Yeah. And then it's just a cold Invincible open, which again, we get these Invincible opens, which I do love. He's ripped away and then like, oh, come on, look, we'll just kill the humans and we're going to go. Don't know what happened here. Let's just get on with it.
Yeah.
And then the cold open. And still going with every time people going, it's not like you're and cutting to Invincible. Yes. That cold open slate card. I still love that. Also a different slate card.
It is. This time it's dark and it's cracking as well. So we may see that crack further. Last season we got the card being covered with more and more blood as the season went on. So expecting that we're going to see the slate crack as the season goes on. But we do get the old slate card at the end of the episode when Angstrom Levi closes out the episode. We get him about to say the word Invincible and it's covered up. This time it's said pretty freely in the episode. So I just thought it was different. But yeah, it was you that pointed out to me that this may not have been Angstrom Levi that we've just met here in the other dimension using a power that he has. It's another Angstrom Levi pulling him from his dimension. So it wasn't very clear to me the first couple of times I watched the episode. So that's a really good point. It's not that every Angstrom Levi has the power to create portals. In fact, it may only be a few of them. Most of the rest of them just have some other abilities or other useful knowledge that he needs. Yeah,
and we can get into it kind of further on, but yeah, it is going by the comic books. There is only one Angstrom Levi, which is let's call the universe, our universe, kind of the one that we usually watch Invincible, the Prime universe, just to make it kind of easier. The Prime Angstrom Levi is the one with the power. Right. He has the ability to create and kind of pull people, animal, things from alternate universe. And he wants to use that to take the knowledge of all the Angstrom Levi's from every multiverse, because some universes are just slightly different. Some are very different. And he wants to be able to understand all that information from hundreds and thousands of angstroms, and take that and then use that to understand, and fix his own prime universe, essentially. He wants to be able to kind of, in this one there's like free fission energy, so he wants to pull that. And here they've cured cancer, so we want to take that information. Yeah. It's somewhat kind of in good faith. He's not trying it to be evil. Yeah. He's not a supervillain. He employs the greater good mentality.
Yeah, it's the group think. It's the philanthropic nature of this character. He's trying to use his abilities to bring more knowledge to this world and then share it back out to the other worlds as well. He's saying that he's going to spread it out back through the dimensions as well, but he'll fix the prime universe first. So that's quite interesting. So we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go through our further points. But I want to kind of take a bit of a veer off to the left, as the show does, in our point number 2. Let's talk about Mark and Debbie Grayson, dealing with the loss of Nolan Grayson as they knew him, or Omni-Man.
Can I just say, one of the most beautiful 2 to 3 minute scenes was just seeing I think it's Radiohead, maybe?
It's Karma Police by Radiohead, yeah.
Yes. Just seeing Mark fly as Invincible through the world, solving problems to that song. And it just, like, the choice, the sound director and the audio composer and whoever made the decision to pair that song with that kind of scene, it was so on point. It was just beautiful.
It's a really interesting choice, and as a Radiohead fan, I was so distracted by the song being used here. I would say whoever picked it was picking it for the line "For a minute there I lost myself," which is part of the tune, but the song "Karma Police" is about something very, very different. So it's quite interesting to use it at this moment. But yeah, I think that line works really well, and I think the song is a beautiful song. So yeah, both of those two things worked very well for the scene.
What is the song about?
The song is about people wresting control and trying to control you effectively. So, so it's okay. not really about this kind of situation. So they are the Karma Police who come in and destroy you and destroy your personality, and then you lose yourself. So, yeah.
Interesting. I have never known that. I have always just take it as you are depressed and the Karma Police are here to kind of take back that depression or give you depression, just the ups and downs. Anyway, fantastic song, goes really well with the mood it is setting. It's one of those, maybe, okay, as a Radiohead fan, you're like, that's a weird choice. As a non-Radiohead fan who just likes the song and chose, I was like, oh, very beautiful, very somber, just very melancholic. He is depressed about thinking about it, doesn't know where to fit in anymore. He's not... Like some people are afraid of him. Some people don't want him near. Everyone looks at him like his dad was the worst thing in the world, which he was. And they destroyed half of Chicago, which they did.
And I think that's one of the interesting things, that Mark isn't really getting a lot of people criticizing him for what his dad did. People aren't equating Invincible and Omni-Man. They're not equating Mark to what his father did either. So, we see the scene where he finally goes back to school and the former bully that was beating him up at the start of last season gives him a big hug and tells him, I don't know what it'd be like to lose my dad. Even though my dad is a horrible person, I still wouldn't want to lose him, like you've just lost your dad, So it's really all about Mark and him beating himself down,
Yes.
He talks to Cecil about going to join the Guardians of the Globe again, and Cecil says to him, no, you need more rest. Kind of worried that he might turn into his father. He might be lying to him about him being okay, but still not blaming him for what his father did.
Yeah. So there is, again, the thing, like, a lot of people didn't know Nolan was Omni-Man. So a lot of people don't know Mark is Invincible. So you do have with the bully just knows that Mark's father is dead. Nolan is dead. He is. But then you do, so that split is still there. I think what very much this episode does, and we see it even more with Debbie, is the lie that has perpetuated Mark and Debbie's life, which is Nolan was a good man. He was a superhero. He was an author. But then all the things that led to that last episode where you hear him talk about Debbie, Mark's mother, kind of, she was more of like a pet to me. Like, you don't understand. You're half Viltrumite. You will live for eons. And they will crumble and die. And you will look at humans the way you look at pets. Like they'll live for 7 years and then they're gone. All of that is still weighs so heavy on them. And then they also blame themselves. Mark lost. Like, the thing to remember, again, the difference about one of the reasons and the difference I really enjoy about Robert Kirkman, his books and his different kind of projects is they're zombie genre, they're superhero genre, but that's just a setting. It very much, it's the story he tells with these. And here you do see, like, this is lost. Like, this is, you see, like, Mark lost. The ending of season 1 is he lost.
Absolutely.
Omni-Man could have killed him and just continued on. But Nolan left. Nolan just ran away because he couldn't do it. And you've also got Mark has to deal with that as well. Like, that he just got hammered and destroyed by his father. And he could have died if not for that somewhat a bit of emotion on top of from his father. So it's really just, it's interesting to see, like, this gets too dark. This goes to a very dark place.
Absolutely. But in amongst that, there is some interesting support that comes from Olga, who was the widow of Red Rush, who was killed by Nolan when he killed the original Guardians of the Globe. I really liked this moment, for some reason, because, you know, a lot of us have lost people in our lives and you don't really know how to handle it at all. Grief is dealt with in really different ways by different people, you know, and Olga sits down with Debbie over a couple of bottles of wine, maybe a few too many from Debbie. I get the feeling by the lingering on the bottle of wine that Debbie's drinking way too much. But Olga says to her, you can be angry and have a sense of loss. That is okay. It doesn't have to be mutually exclusive that you're sad that he's gone and also angry about who he became and who he really is. So I thought that was quite an interesting way of talking about grief, within the show. Again, so, you know, extra kind of layers that only Robert Kirkman's style of writing would give to characters.
Yeah, again, you called out the one of the most interesting bits is they do linger on those bottles. So they are kind of starting to make you think that, like, maybe Debbie has the beginning of a problem here. And then you're right. Like, the way that we're getting from, like, Nolan killed Olga's husband, but she does not hold that against. Like, they were heroes. Like, they're there as support for each other. And yeah, the hatred and the loss. It's an interesting duality that they do explore throughout the rest of this episode.
Yeah. And it is really interesting that that's the major storyline here for Mark. The show is called Invincible. Yeah. It's about him. And most of the first episode doesn't really feature anything other than him overcoming this or him having the wherewithal to stay with superheroing, to want to go out and go back to some of his old ways, go back to school, go back to possibly the Guardians of the Globe, you know. But it's a very small proportion of the episode. Most of the episode is actually spent with Angstrom.
Yeah, the interesting thing, like, one of those, we kind of called about it earlier, Cecil and Mark meeting each other, seeing Mark is not doing well. No. Like, he's not dealing with this. And you see him lose control in a Burger Mart, where he kind of screams back at Cecil going, I want to join, I'm ready, and smacks himself, like, his arms down. Very much denting the hell out of that black metal table. And again, showing just that neither of them are okay. 6 months in, they are still suffering grief, suffering loss, suffering betrayal, and beyond.
Absolutely. So an interesting pause, I suppose, for this first episode for those two characters.
Yes.
Let's move on to our point number 3. Other characters not doing as well. as they could be. The Guardians of the Globe that we have here, now with their new leader of Robot, who's got his new human body, which we saw him get at the end of last season, is Rudy. But we have got this other big battle in the center of this episode with the giant with the mind of an 8-year-old, which I thought was quite fun.
I love that you see, like, they figure this out. That is from the comics, and there's way more to that story. Okay. So I'm just like, I'm waiting to see, maybe they kind of go back to it, because they do drop that giant into the middle of a car park below. So fun. But yeah, seeing Rudy with his new body and him experiencing fear for the first time and getting laughed at by Monster Girl.
Yes.
Which is great. So it's like, oh, that thing. Yeah, we get it all the time. Welcome to being human.
Exactly.
It's fun. And you're right. The Guardians are not doing well. They're not coordinated. Things still go wrong with
a lot.
Not just because of Robot, but like beyond. They're not gelled as a cohesive fighting force, if you will.
Yeah.
So it's again also fun to see that like nobody is perfect, even the Guardians of the Globe.
Yes, absolutely. But I do like the battle with the giant. I love how they work out that his brain is only 8 years old, because he says, "I want to be president and part of the space program and an astronaut." It's like, okay, that's definitely not the kind of ideas of our usual villains that we deal with. I thought that was quite fun. But because of this problem that Robot has in controlling and leading the team with his new body, they effectively get a new leader. The Immortal is back and is going to be the new leader of the Guardians of the Globe.
I love that they bring him back. I love that the Immortal is... I can't remember how much did they reveal about the Immortal in season 1?
I believe that they said he was a couple of 1,000 years old in season 1. And that he comes back over and over and over again. Yeah. Or at least you revealed to me on this very podcast that he comes back over and over again. Derek, you idiot. His name is the Immortal. He will be back.
Okay. Yes. Okay. So at least it didn't ruin that. Yeah. No, the Immortal is fun. The Immortal, he's the... They may do it later, so again, I'm picking and choosing, but he has been around for thousands of years. Right. He's been involved in the United States and the world for thousands of years. And no matter how many times he is killed, he comes back. So, but he's a dick.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like the best way of putting it. He is arrogant, cocksure, and just not a good leader.
No.
Comparatively even to a very broken robot.
You can eventually overcome that kind of stuff. But I think it does help that the character design for the Immortal looks really, really like Wolverine. And if there's one fundamental fact about Wolverine that you know, it's that he's a dick and would make a terrible leader most of the time. And he's lived for a lot longer than most other characters. So he comes to it with that, well, I'm older than you. I have all of this experience. That's kind of the same thing that the Immortal comes to this with. He won't recognize anybody else's opinion because he's been around for a very long time and seen lots and lots of things. So I think that comparison is probably pretty accurate.
Yes. And like with the Immortal being in there, like he brings in new muscle, if you will, with Bulletproof.
Yeah. Now this is a new character. We don't get very much time on with him on screen. The only thing that really made very clear here is he doesn't like Rexplode at all. Thinks he's an idiot.
No one likes Rex.
Nobody does, but it was very quick. It was like instantly he came on board and criticized Rexplode for his name, firstly, and for what his powers, effectively. So I'm guessing the two of those are going to be going up against each other a few times over the course of the season.
Yeah, probably. I think you're close with that. I love that Jason Mantzoukas. He just plays Rexplode so well. Like, so well. Just like that kind of overly cocky, kind of hipster, college bro style guy who shit don't stink and he knows it kind of thing. and just plays it so well. And gets really knocked down a lot
Absolutely.
in this episode.
Yeah. And most of last season as well. So I'm presuming that will continue. Rex Explodes, not very many people's favourite character. No. I don't think, except for the fun value of him. But yeah, so I guess once again, another lineup for the Guardians of the Globe here with Immortal and Bulletproof coming to join their ranks. Last season we saw Atom Eve has left the Guardians of the Globe. She's going off on her own to do her own thing. So, she's not a member of the team this season.
Yes. And I'm assuming they'll we got her one shot, if you want to call it that, already via the show. But I think we'll get more and more seeing just how she goes through in the season. I'm hoping they do explore it, because she has an amazing arc in the comic books. And again, we talk about my burden of knowledge when we already know a lot of the stuff where they're going with things. But for me, it's just how that character is portrayed and the arc she goes through, because she's the blonde pin-up short skirt wearing superhero. Okay. She's bubbly, and you're like, what the hell? Oh yeah, it's Adam Eve, whatever. And what she goes through, how she deals with everything, is fantastic. Yeah. And we saw that very much begin in season 1, and getting to the point where she is going to be at season 2 is going to be fun.
No, it'll be really interesting. I'm really hopeful, I suppose, with the show. I think I said this last season. I'm really hopeful with the show that it does follow a similar path to The Walking Dead, where even as a comic book fan, you may get the major beats like we did as comic book fans watching The Walking Dead, but it will take its twists and turns. It will take it far off the main path, because the comic books are still there, right? You can still read the comic books. It doesn't have to tell you exactly the same story. So I'm hoping there'll be lots of twists and turns that you won't anticipate either, Chris, as we continue through the story of the Invincible books. Good stuff. Let's get on to our final point then.
Yes. Angstrom. Let's talk about him, because he is probably going to be at least one of the big bads, if not the big bad, but at least one of the big bads. Yeah. And this is cool. You're introduced to Angstrom. We were introduced to Angstrom at the beginning of this episode, but we're introduced to Prime Angstrom via the springing of, essentially the Mauler twins are back and getting them free. And that's how he very much he's like, you are some of the biggest genius in the world. I have a job for you. He breaks them out via a portal. Yep. Which is still very fun, because you get to see how they're being treated back in high security again.
I really like that, because we saw them break out a few times last season, and the joke here is that they know they're going to get out at some point. So all you've got to do if you're a guard is just treat them okay, give them okay food, and then they won't kill you during their escape. That's the way they describe it. So I thought that was quite fun as the portals open up behind them, and they just go instantly, I guess we'll just leave through these portals then. That's just, they know they're going to get out. It's always fun. But yeah, he says something to them. Yeah, he says to them that he chose them specifically to help because they have a very unique set of skills. I guess they have no morals and are very good at technology and very good at building super weapons or super structures. I guess that's something to do with that. But that was quite an idea that he had to bring them on board. And we do find out later that he was lying to them, because in all the other universes, he's also working with all the Maulers of those universes. So to further along the plan. So not only is he trying to get all of the minds of himself in other universes and all of that knowledge merged together, he's also using all of the Maulers throughout the multiverse or the multi-dimensions that he's going back and forth to. So I thought that was a good little gag. And they're going, hang on a second, he told us we were special.
It was unique.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, and that is one of the fun things about Angstrom, when you reveal he reveals his plan. So initially, when he says to the Maulers, and we get introduced to his safe house, and you see a couple of hundred, let's say 50 to 100 other Angstroms, male, female, every kind of variation under the sun in the safe house. And he's like, I want you to build me like a machine. I want to access their knowledge. And essentially, I can't get it to work because for some reason my machine just isn't capable. And he explains it's very much because he wants to access their knowledge so that, because in all these other worlds, different things have been solved. Hunger's been solved, cancer's been solved, blah, blah, blah. He wants to be able to do that and have access to that information to see the bigger picture. Subsequently, we do find out that he's, as you said, he's done this with all the other Maulers in all the other universes, and it's not just 100, it's 100,000.
Potentially, yeah.
Different angstroms that are all hooked up to these different machines in all the other universes, and then all going to be funneled into him.
Yes.
That knowledge.
Yes.
It's a cool, when you do think about it, it is a cool idea.
It's absolutely a cool idea. And, you know, again, for the philanthropic reasons that he chose to do this, it all makes great sense, doesn't it? I wonder how he chose that he would be the prime one and everybody else went, yeah, grand, that's a good idea. No problem. We'll pass it all on to you, who can also travel through all of the dimensions. So we'll give you all of the knowledge. Maybe that's what it is. He's the only one that can travel through the dimensions, solving those problems once they're solved on our prime, in my prime version. Exactly. Yes.
That's the thing. He is as far as we are aware, based on what he says, he is the only one with the ability to kind of multiversal skip, dimension skip, whatever, universe skip. But it is also very interesting. We do see that he has to walk from place to place. So he can access, like, he has to go to the different dimension and then to the exact same location, the right location, and then skip to back to his location if he wants to go that way, because he can't just portal X where he has to actually walk it. And it's very fun when you hear that, like the Maulers go, well, we already figured that part out for you.
Yeah.
Why you're doing
But then they did a really confusing thing in the animation. They had him leave by portal and then come back by portal on the other side of them. And that confused me because I was like, they just said that he can't just move from one side of a place to another side of the place. And it made it look like he could do that. He could create portals. That was just a little bit of a confusing thing in the animation. And it feels like if you'd read the comic, you know that rule is true. Whereas if you're watching the show, like I was without reading the comic, I'm kind of going, is he just saying they're wrong? Because he just did it right there, right in front of them. I don't know. But I guess if that's what it says in the comic, then we'll go with that. But this is all stopped by Invincible coming in here. And I kind of liked that this isn't caused by Invincible. It's not that the whole failure of this plan. He doesn't actually stop what's happening, and he doesn't cause what happens to Angstrom. That's caused by Angstrom himself. The Maulers have built the machine, have worked with him to, let's say, amplify the machine or refine the machine. But what they've said to him is, while this is going on, there's too much depending on this process reaching its end. You can't stop it no matter what at all. Invincible arrives, starts fighting with the Maulers, and while there, Angstrom looks out and goes, well, I can't lose all this knowledge, so takes off the headset, which is the connection to the machine and the connection to all the other angstroms from across all the other dimensions. And doing that leads to the explosion that kills them all and mutates him.
Yes. To the iconic, that's how I remember Angstrom Levi. The mutation. This garbled, essentially brain-backed human, because he does have all the knowledge now. He did download successfully all of the other Angstrom Levi's, hundreds of thousands of their knowledge into himself. And he is going to use that to get revenge on Invincible, who he blames for this, even though, technically it's his fault. Very much.
But also by having all of that other knowledge, he has the knowledge from all of those other dimensions where Invincible teamed up with Omni-Man and killed millions. And in this case, because he's put so many versions of himself in there, it's millions of people that he knew specifically who've all been killed, millions of members of his family, all across all the dimensions. So he has the pain of all of that going into him at the same time as well. So, so it's a really interesting supervillain creation that we have here.
Yeah. What did you think of the Mauler variants?
Oh, I loved this idea. Again, you know,
it's cool,
like it's not just hundreds and hundreds of the same looking characters. The Maulers themselves can't tell apart who's number one and who's number two, who was the first Mauler and who was the second one. So I kind of expected that if you got them from loads of other dimensions, they would look exactly the same. So I was really happy to see that they changed up the design. So different versions of them, some with beards, some female, some taller, some shorter, loads of different versions of the Maulers from across all the dimensions, because every possibility is in play, right?
Yeah. I enjoy this because you rarely see, a lot of the time, as you said, like when they start getting into multiverse, it's like, here's 50 million different versions of Superman, and they're pretty much all the same. Some have red tights, some have blue tights. Here we start to see very much the fun of, okay, well, what would all these different characters, what would this character like in all these other different worlds? And the fun thing is, I'm hoping we get to see their versions of the Guardians of the Globe from all the different worlds, the different Invincibles from all the different worlds, because how they will look, how they will act is going to be the fun part of this multiversal aspect of the Invincible system.
Absolutely. It's always been the fun part about sci-fi and this type of stuff, right back to Star Trek doing their mirror universe. What's different about these characters in other sci-fi universes?
They all have a beard and they're evil.
Exactly. That's what they landed on. But it is really interesting. It's a problem that Marvel just hit up against when they did their multiverse of Kangs. They had every single one of them played by one actor. So suddenly you're going, well, why didn't you have some different versions of them so that you could have loads of options available to you? Anybody could be a variant of Kang. In this case here, you have all the variants of Angstrom, Levi. Not all of them look the same at all. Could be anybody, and same with the Maulers. They all look different. They all could be just slightly changed from our usual versions of the Maulers. Talk to me about one final bit of this. So this is all in the post-credit scene. Quite a big moment to put in the post-credit scene, right? Your creation of your big villain. But we see one of the Maulers rising from underneath the pile of junk, one of our main ones. I presume it's still one of our prime Maulers, let's say. The other one seems to be gone, or doesn't rise. And this Mauler is now has no skin on one half of his body. Or has he merged with the other Mauler?
No. So he basically is just badly scarred.
Right.
And one thing we found out via season 1 is the whole thing about the Maulers twins, if you will, even though they're clones, essentially, is they don't know which one is the clone. They perfectly replicate each other.
Yes.
And they essentially download their memories from the moment they get in the machine. So the fun part here is what happens when you clone yourself and you're badly disfigured and your clone looks perfect.
Yes.
Well, they're going to know that they're the clone.
There you go. I like that.
It's going to get fun.
I like that.
It's going to be, it's what happens with that when they expressly in season 1 kind of laid out, both of us think the other is the clone. So, and that's why we treat each other, we kind of have to treat each other with respect.
Right.
Because maybe I am the clone, but most likely you are, because you're an idiot.
Right.
And that's, now it's like, ooh, yay,
you'll know that. You'll know that from now on.
Yes.
Excellent. That's it, I think, for our major moments, major thoughts from the episode. Any other notes, anything else you want to bring in, Chris, that we haven't talked about at all?
No, I want to bring up again the animation. I kind of talked about it in season 1, where they are employing some kind of, I want to say computer graphics, kind of, I was going to say CGI, but it's not. It's kind of very much, it's a mix of, like what you would classify as old animation style.
Yeah.
But then they are kind of adding in some very much kind of CGI in their kind of computer versions. But it just looks, I don't know what it is about the Invincible one and Vox Machina. I'm drawn, the way that they do sometimes have the frame the character and then move the universe around, or move the cell or the environment around that character. It really allows them to set up these beautiful shots. Again, going back to Invincible, going through his kind of journey while they do the Radiohead song, like seeing him just kind of fly at speed, seeing him go into the sky and doing that flip and back down. Just hanging, like they are able to get some beautiful framing in my opinion. And then just when they actually just do the animation, it looks fantastic. It really is just this whoosh, and I make the noise of the whoosh noise because I'm like, they invoke it. Like in comic books, you would just have lines, like black lines, whoosh lines. Or sometimes they write whoosh behind the superhero, like Zap and Pow. But they managed, even without the sound, because you don't hear him fly. You hear just, it's again, just backed by that track. They do invoke that kind of speed and that sound as he is flying.
Absolutely.
So just my note is that the animation's still top quality. Like, and I look forward to it. They've obviously, with the success of season 1, we're given a bit more of a blank paycheck. Not blank, but an increased paycheck. I'm hoping to because it really is just, if this quality maintains, it really is going to bring people going, oh, cartoons, they're for kids. Oh, no.
Don't let your kids watch this one.
Welcome to this.
Absolutely. I know it does look great. And they even accomplish that in the scenes when Mark is going through his crime fighting and going through his superhero saving, where you see the ambulance picking up someone in an accident, and he picks up the ambulance and travels at speed to get to the hospital. Thought that was pretty cool. And then him putting out the fire using the ocean waves. Although it looked like the firemen weren't very happy with that.
No, but to be fair, you're going to be hit with a title.
Yeah, but I think that's one of the interesting things. It's the emergency services, basically the ambulance people who are trying to save someone's life in the ambulance. They get dropped off at the hospital, so then they're kind of like, oh, I guess we don't have to do anything other than bring the person inside for the doctors inside the hospital. And then the fireman going, I guess we don't have to do anything because he's just used the ocean to put out the fire. And then the police officer, you see his shoulders kind of drop as well when he doesn't have to fight against the villains who've arrived there as well. So I just thought that was quite funny. It was like as if Mark was listening to all the emergency services and doing all their jobs for them, and they were very unhappy about that. So I thought that was good in the animation there as well. One final note I have from the episode, or two little quick things that we should mention. So Mark's about to leave high school. He's about to go off to Upstate University with his girlfriend. So they have a little moment there. So they're about to finish off in high school. So that's the end of his high school journey, just back for the last couple of months. Which I thought that's kind of sets Mark where he is in his life, I suppose, about to make that big move to college. And then our final scene in the episode proper was the Immortal paying a visit to Mark and telling him that he's going to be keeping an eye on him, worried that he is going to become Omni-Man. Immortal, even with all the knowledge he had, couldn't envisage that Omni-Man would kill the Guardians of the Globe. So he is now suspicious of Mark. So it seems like quite a big threat coming from the Immortal.
Yeah. I still love that the premise of Invincible and Omni-Man, where basically you're Superman, your Star Spangled Banner, Red, White, and Blue Boy Scout turns out to be a genocidal maniac.
Exactly.
I still love it, and you're kind of you're like, oh yeah, what would happen? No, it's fun. I can't wait to see more of where this goes in the rest of the season. Excellent. As we wrap up the episode then, Chris, what's your final thoughts on the season 2 premiere of Invincible? Good to have it back? Very good to have it back. Strong opening. Really kind of showing you again, like setting up what we assume is going to be the rest of the season. The setting up the main storylines. Again, lengthy episodes. Going like 45 minute plus kind of again with credits and kind of and the end the end scenes kind of as well, but not very little filler if that makes sense. Like each scene seemed like it was needed. There was nothing like, there was no Basil exposition scenes as I talk about. It was kind of like, well, in case you forgot, Invincible, last year you did this, like blah, 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 blah. Just kind of reminding them the scenes where we do get some of, 6 months has happened. Like, there are scenes where they're done with emotion, with like Michelle Yeoh kind of really bringing in that Debbie, Stephen Young bringing in his Mark Grayson just so well. Yeah, like just so well done. I'm just so happy it's back, and I look forward to. The only thing that I'm like, we're only 4 this year. Take all the time you need. Part 1, Part 2, fine. Part 8, damn, it's only 4. I'm gonna have to savor them.
I would love to know if that came from their cheeky trailer earlier on this year. So they released a trailer at San Diego Comic-Con saying that Invincible would return before the end of 2023. Hopefully, the end of 2023 could mean the 31st of December was kind of the joke about it. And I wonder, because they had made the commitment that they would have something out this year, did they have to put the 4 episodes this year and 4 episodes next year? Because traditionally they just go weekly. And they are saying it's coming out early next year, but they were saying it was, up against it. It was quite difficult to get all the animation done for these 8 episodes of the show, plus the Adam Eve movie. So I do wonder if they are still working really hard getting those last 4 episodes completed. So in time for the release next year. So I wonder if they kind of went, oh, okay, we definitely have these first 4 episodes locked. Let's get them out this year, have a little break, and put the other 4 episodes out next year. Because it's not traditionally how Prime Video would release their shows. They do them differently to that. So it's kind of interesting that they've chosen to do it with Invincible. But I wonder if it's because they made that commitment. Because even the commitment itself felt like, please give us just a little bit more time to get it done.
Yeah. I do wonder if it's somewhat the SAG-AFTRA strikes for the last 100 plus days.
Yeah.
Also, because it would stop any additional voice pickups. Like, they wouldn't be able to re-record.
No, it's not actually connected to that. The SAG-AFTRA strike is for live action actors. The animation has got a pass on it. It's not included in those unions. So while there are some connections over to video games, I think it was supposed to be.
Yep, there's a video game strike.
That union were also going to join the SAG-AFTRA strike. The actual animation voice actors haven't joined that strike. So not connected with that. I think it just is to do with the fact, as you mentioned, how great the animation is. That means it takes a long time to get completed and locked and finished. So, I just wonder if the choice was bring it forward. We promised them something this year. We'll give them half the arc this year, half the arc in a couple of weeks' time. That's what, Stranger Things does over on Netflix. They do those shows in 2 parts. So, maybe it was, they felt their fans would accept having 4 episodes this year and 4 episodes next year. And then we get, the third season.
Mid-January. Like, I'm happy with mid-January. Like, it's an empty season. That's great.
It's going to be June, Chris.
I know. Now I've just said it. It's going to be June. Hey, it's a birthday. It's a birthday surprise.
There you go, Chris.
Derek, what did you think of this premiere?
I really like this premiere. It was nice to be back with this show. It's really hard to describe Invincible. I forget how adult it is, not only in the violence. That's what keeps kind of coming back to me, is how brutal it is and how bloody it is and how adult it is in certain situations, but also how they deal with characters and the characterization of what's going on amongst them. Those subtle nods to Debbie possibly drinking too much after the loss of her husband, having Olga come over to her house and talk to her about loss, what Mark's going through after losing to his father. He's having those thoughts about what it could be like in 500 years or 1,000 years or 10,000 years. He's having those thoughts because of what was put into his mind by Omni-Man. So having all that section of the episode, along with all the other animation bits that we're come to expect, is something very different and sets Invincible apart and makes it more interesting than lots of other animated shows. I don't think there's very many other animated shows that would really take that as something that's essential to their episodes. It feels like something that other animated shows would leave on the cutting room floor and just have a lot more punching and fighting between their characters. But they take the pause in Invincible in the episodes, and it's something I really enjoy about it, something that sets it apart. So yeah, great start to the second season. I will say though, I was very happy for the Previously On at the start of the episode, and I do find it really difficult. I've got the list of all the actors and characters for Invincible. There are so many characters to keep track of their names. And really, I find it difficult sometimes keeping track of every single character in this show. So I'm hoping that when we get to watch it, we get to watch it with subtitles on, so you can actually pick up some of the characters' names. It was hard to catch them all. So, but they did a good job in Previously On, reintroducing it to some of those most important characters as well. But yeah, really looking forward to continuing on with season 2 of Invincible. Thanks so much to all of you for joining us for our discussion about this first episode of Invincible. If you want to get in contact with us, you can email us to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com or pop on over to our website at tvpodcastindustries.com to subscribe to the podcast. You can also join us on our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/TV Podcast Industries. We'll be back next week with Invincible Season 2, Episode 2. In about 6 hours, I lose my virginity to a fish. That's the name of the episode. That's not me.
Yes. I was going to say, I was about to make a joke and you got there before me.
Always, Chris, always. We are also just finishing off our coverage of The Boys spin-off Gen V. That's been an excellent series, a very adult live-action show. If you like Invincible and haven't tried out The Boys, and you feel you're old enough, go check out Gen V for the finale. We will have that podcast out, hopefully later today as well.
Yes. Thank you so much for joining us. I can't wait to speak for the remainder of the 4 episodes this season and into the part 2, if we call it that. So from me, keep watching, keep listening, and keep being invincible.
Speak to you next time. Bye.
Bye.